Welcome back to Student-Led Neuroscience, and today we're going to be talking about the skin conductance response and frequency domain analysis of electroencephalography characteristics to explore various bands during acute stress. As you all know, stress is something we all experience as students. Acute stress is something that lasts for a couple of days, but it does not persist over a longer period of time. There are many widely accepted physiological measures for acute stress, including the skin conductance response. Skin conductance response amplitude from electrodermal measurements looks at the sweat gland activity during states of high arousal. And that can be induced by, let's say, a scary image. Skin conductance response is a measure that's seen as reliable. A higher amplitude in your skin conductance would mean that you have a higher physiological arousal to whatever stimuli that you are experiencing. Different frequency bands that we extract through EEG recordings are not as widely used as correlates for stress. So that's what we wanted to explore. We wanted to see if there's a relationship with different frequency band activity during stress and a more accepted measure like the skin conductance response. And we wanted to look at stress in the brain, which you cannot get from looking at electrodermal activity. So we predict that after experiencing an acute stress-inducing stimuli, the student will show an increase in the high beta wave oscillation as well as the theta-beta ratio, and that those two measures would be correlated with the average skin conductance response amplitude. We also wanted to explore different bands like the alpha, beta, theta, and delta bands to look at the association of different spectral components during stress. So let me walk you through our methodology. Since we are not allowed to record information from multiple people, we only used one participant, which was me. I was not aware of any of the images being presented, so we had to make do with what we had. The order in which we had trials was we first showed a blank screen where we wanted to see the baseline activity. And then there were a series of stress-inducing stimuli shown in the next trial, followed by another blank screen to assess the post-stress baseline activity, which was then followed with a relaxation-inducing trial, which was followed by a post-relaxation baseline activity trial, which was just another blank screen. All trials had a 50-second duration. Each image for trials 2 and 4 were shown for 10 seconds. We wanted to follow a repeated measures design, and there could have been the possibility of there being counterbalancing, but the goal was to see how well students are able to regulate themselves, how well they can move past that stressful event. So that's why we wanted to include a relaxation-inducing trial. So are you able to go back to enjoying life after experiencing an acute stressor, or is that going to keep impeding your mind and your thinking? So that's what we're really interested in. So the order does matter, since what we're truly interested in is the ability to regulate oneself after experiencing an aversive stimuli. Of course, if we truly wanted to measure how well some people might be better at regulating than others, we would most likely need to have 2 participant pools, and we give assessments inventories which assess for how stressed an individual might be, and then group people based on how they score on those 2 assessments. And then we could make predictions such as the group with high stress, those people will be better able to regulate, so they're going to score lower on trial 4 and 5, lower skin conductance measures, and we would also most likely see differential spectral activity as well. But of course, since we're only working with one participant, which was me, it is really not possible to test that. So continuing on, after each trial, the participants' mood ratings were also recorded. 1 being the worst someone has ever felt, and 10 being the best they've ever felt. Of course, we're using a Likert scale for all of these ratings, so it comes with its own disadvantages, as you would know. Moving on to the equipment, we collected all our frontal EEG measurements from the Heart and Brain Spiker box from Backyard Brains, which collects a voltage in millivolts over time, which we then process and filter out noise through custom-made scripts in MATLAB. Then the skin conductance response was acquitted through a set of EDA gel electrodes, which are put on the palm of the hand to measure the stress response. So to validate our skin conductance measure, we recorded the electrodermal activity for every single trial. And of course, you see that during the stress-inducing trial, that's when you have the highest skin conductance response, the highest amplitude. And that's to be expected. And yes, we support that the average high beta band wave and the theta-beta ratio are measures of acute stress, because you can see that there's a high correlation between the high beta band and the average skin conductance response, as well as the theta band and the average skin conductance response. So before I go talking about other spectral components like the alpha, beta, delta bands, I really want you to understand how we were able to extract this data and how we were able to process the data. More importantly, all this activity is coming from the frontal brain region. Since the electrodes are frontal electrodes, they're placed on the front of your scalp. So we collect the response, the neural signal, which is in millivolts. So it's millivolts over time, which is our time domain. We convert from the time domain to the frequency domain. So if you look at the scale of the data collected over the frequency domain, it shows you the power spectral density, PSD. Do you see that? PSD? A little scale. It represents the amplitude, which means more activity of each oscillatory wave if you see a higher amplitude, through a range of different frequencies. We're basically looking at where in the frequencies do I see the most activity. That's the use of a frequency domain analysis. So the bands that we were interested in were the high beta, 23 to 38 hertz, theta band, 4 to 8 hertz, beta, 15 to 23 hertz, delta, 1 to 4 hertz, and alpha, 8 to 12 hertz bands. In general, most activity across bands were seen in the trial with the stress-inducing stimuli. From the following figure, you can see the spectrograms for both alpha and beta waves. EEG responses, such as a decrease in frontal alpha and an increase in frontal beta, have been proposed to reflect stress-related brain activity. A decrease in alpha and an increase in beta power during or after stressors can be seen after showing negative images. Interestingly, our data shows that there is both an increase in the alpha and beta power. This might be due to noise since we're only recording from a single participant, or maybe it's because of the differences between right and left hemispheric activity. More right-sided alpha power indicates more left hemispheric activity, and it shows an increase in emotional flexibility according to some sources. A stronger alpha band activity on the right hemisphere can be seen under stress at frontal electrode pairs. This could explain the increase in alpha during the stress-inducing trial as a potential byproduct of higher right hemispheric activity. Since we are recording from a single channel, it is really not possible to visualize this hemispheric disparity if it does exist. Delta waves are associated with the activity of the unconscious mind, and it has some relation to recovery from stress. This might explain the sudden increase in delta power during the post-stress condition, following shortly after having experienced an acute stress-inducing event. As can be seen, where in trial 3 you see the sudden increase in activity, though during the experience of the stressor during trial 2, there wasn't as much of a dramatic shift or increase in power spectral density. So there's no real way for me to quantify this result. These are all descriptive plots. Of course, if I had more participants, or if I had more skills in dealing with single participant data, maybe I could have drawn some quantitative conclusions. But even then, I don't think it would be appropriate. So I think sticking to descriptive plots is appropriate in our case. Moving on to theta waves. When theta is high, the brain is employed over time to recruit resources, to promote higher order learning and memory. From our results, it seems that theta waves can be seen under high emotional valence and physiological arousal, where it's likely the brain is trying to recruit more resources during that stressful event. Moving on to challenges. So first and foremost, the biggest issue that caused the most limitations was that our study was underpowered, which makes it really difficult to obtain generalizable findings and test for significance using parametric tests from classes such as SCI 008, which we can't really use on single participant data, which is why we could only provide you guys with the descriptive statistics for all data we collected. Another issue is that we are recording from one channel, which results in a low quality signal that is delocalized over a larger area. And the data measured is sensitive to the existence of noise, although low-pass filters have been applied to remove noise artifacts. Also, the images used in the paradigm were not previously tested for construct validity, and different images might result in different degrees of stress, which can lead to discrepancies over time. And the testing environment may also be another potential hindrance because it was in a place with a lot of my friends. It was not a completely isolated area. So those are a few things to boot. Really, the best way to mitigate noise is to average the activity over many people. If only that was attainable for us. An aspect we would like to focus on in the future would be to see how long it takes for different participants to return to baseline activity after having experienced a stressful stimulus, and whether that is correlated with a better ability to regulate stress. I feel that our current paradigm lays out a good foundation to explore this effect in future student-made work. And I think we as a club create a space for undergrads to collaborate together and to be able to find true satisfaction with creating some of our own exploratory research questions. Though I do not think it's appropriate to think about therapeutic programs and stress management techniques and all the applicability from what we've found. I do think that this is a great start for students to collaborate with one another and explore questions on stress and have fun.